materials that we have are all valid for a period of 2 years. There is not a single penny to be paid extra, and there are no hidden costs whatsoever to access books or assessments or registrations. Everything is included in the fees that you paid. Nothing extra has to be done. So with this brief agenda, what I'm going to do is basically get on and share a couple of things with you as we go along. So I'm going to be dipping in and out of different screens. One or two things which I want to check before I start to make sure that when we provide logins and other details to you for accessing our system, you should pretty much have them working, from the start. So one or two quick questions which I want to check is one. So I'll start with Jack. What system do you use? Are you a Windows or a Mac user?
I'm a Windows user.
All right, okay. And in terms of the induction now, are you using, what are you using, a PC, a laptop?
I'm currently on my laptop, but I'll be using my PC for most of it. All
right, okay, that's great. And your laptop screen, screen size wise, because if I just show you briefly the size of my monitor here, I've got a 49-inch monitor because I would be shuffling in and out of a couple of things, but just want you to make sure that you're able to see the screen clearly and hear me okay.
Yeah, I can see perfectly. Thank you.
Okay, that's brilliant. Thank you. Johny, coming back to you just quickly, in terms of what systems are you going to be using, and obviously, what do you normally use? Windows? Are you a Windows user or a Mac user?
So I would be using Windows as well. I'm currently on a desktop. I can see everything fine. When I'm actually going to be doing the material, I mainly work remotely, so I'll probably be using my work laptop, which again is a Windows laptop.
That's brilliant, not a problem. So let's crack on with this. And couple of things that I'm going to show you, obviously, in terms of how you access the system. And, you should be able to set that up on your desktop, laptop, your mobile phone. If you use so do you use an iPhone or do you use an Android phone?
I use both. One for personal, one for work.
Okay, that's great. No worries. So you should be able to set up the system on both of types of phones. And obviously this is just as a point, because on the phone or on the tablet, when you set up, it allows us to send you push notifications, which are to do things like sharing a calendar, any deadlines coming up, because on these mobile devices, you have essentially what are called push notifications enabled. It is not mandatory for you to actually have it set up on your side, but if you do plan to do so, then obviously, at some stage you would be able to do that, and I'll show you that in a second or so. Now, in terms of the systems, very quickly, before I go into the course overview, I want to get the systems bit out of the way. And the systems bit out of the way is because for most of the things that you're going to be looking at any given stage with regards to, studying the course or having access to it, I think the starting point is going to be pretty much the website. And the reason I say this is because from the website, you should be able to get to pretty much everything that you need to access for the purposes of studying this course. So on the top of the website, we've got a 24-hour, mobile number on which you can actually WhatsApp. So there's a group that we're going to add you to, which is a level 3 diploma applied statistics group. That group will have some of the learners like yourself and also the tutors which are teaching this particular course. This will be only for urgent messages, considering that privacy, and obviously, people get a lot of messages today, so we wouldn't. We'll only restrict them to sending, important announcements, meeting codes, or, if there is any pressing requirement in terms of any query, you could actually place that on the group. We have a monitored mailbox, which is called admin. And this particular mailbox, if you send an email to, you should be able to get a response within 2 hours or maximum 2 hours, let's put it this way, of sending an email to us. The website also is a starting point to be able to get access to our learning system, which is Moodle. And I'll open that separately because I would go into a bit of details as I go along in terms of, obviously showing the system to you. Apart from that, I think the only other platform that you would need access to at some stage would be the YouTube platform, because what we sometimes do is it's a free storage. When we do record lectures, what we do is we put them up on the YouTube channel, and you should be able to find videos of the course that you are actually studying with us as they are refreshed, or as we record new versions of it. They would normally be available from our YouTube channel. So for the time being and for the duration that you are studying the course with us, what I would suggest is if you go in and subscribe to the channel, so when we do upload any videos related to your course, you should be able to get an alert, coming in from in the email, essentially saying that the new video has been uploaded. So what I would do is, if I may recommend, that I would ask you to bookmark the website by clicking the drop button to your bookmark mark, and similarly the Moodle, and that should allow you to get access to these sites at a click of a button. Now, one other thing which I want to briefly show you, and I mentioned that earlier, is that you can set this up on your phone if you do desire, and obviously have it on your tablet as well. There's an application called Moodle, which is developed by the company Moodle. It looks something like this. It's a white tile widget, which is with an M and a graduation hat. And when you download this free application, you'll be able to install, and have the full access to your course on the Moodle, off the Moodle platform on your mobile device. Now, you would need three things to be able to set it up. One is the URL or the web address where the Moodle is installed. It will also ask you to key in your username and then obviously the password. As long as you have access to these three things, you might need to set it up once. It takes about 30-35 seconds. And once it is set up, it should give you full access to the course material, including everything which you are going to look at in presentations, handout, books, recorded lectures. All of that should be visible, and you should be available on your phone wherever you go or wherever you have access to the internet. Mindful of the fact that the only thing that will be a very small screen, depending on the size and the screen size of your phone, but you should still have access to it. And the advantage that we get is being able to push notifications to you, which are predominantly, we do sometimes, and they would be to engage with you or better engage with you on the course by using calendaring app, any messages and notifications. You can switch them off by changing the settings on this side, and that is entirely in your control. So that's the bit which I want to essentially show how to set up the Moodle. Now, this system is where you would pretty much have access to all the teaching and learning material, and you should be able to log in. If you ever forget your password or username, it should be only a few seconds for you to be able to reset that and get a link in your email, and that should allow you back into the system. In some cases, if you're using the system on shared machines, obviously it's a bit temperamental. As you can see, I'm using it in the college. There are so many users which have come in and logged in, and sometimes it doesn't like the so many users and passwords being stored. So it can be a bit temperamental, but if you are not successful for logging in after 2 attempts, my suggestion would be to click on this option, forget your username and password, and then here either you can write your username, which is going to be unique to you, or the email address, and it'll straight away send you a reset link, which will allow you to get back into the system. Now, while I'm at the system, I just want to very briefly mention that you're using Zoom. We are going to conduct lectures through Zoom. You do not need any subscriptions for it. Just like today, we've sent you a link, you've clicked on it, and you've got onto the session. Similarly, these Zoom meeting invites will be sent to you in the email for the units. And should you wish to attend the live lectures, then these lectures are not mandatory, but obviously they give you an opportunity to discuss and obviously clarify or have an interaction with the lecturer. And when these are done, they are done on a unit basis. And these units are not taught in one lecture. You would probably have 5, 6, 7 lectures covering each learning outcome of the unit in one lecture, maybe about 35 to 45 minutes, and they will all be recorded. So if you miss out any because of prior arrangements or personal engagements, then you'll have a copy of the recording to be able to revisit and obviously go through them at your own time or at your own pace. Now, logging into the system is quite simple. I'm just going to quickly log in as an administrator and show you how the system works. what you see is what you get. Essentially, it's a very simple enough, intuitive system. When you log into the system by typing your username and password in, you're going to see one tile which will show up as your course, which is the ATHE Level 3 Diploma in Applied Statistics. And if you click enter in that course, that should take you into the course and show you the full course content. Now, the other way of looking at going through that is the Applied Statistics course comes under what are called specialist courses for us. So if you drop down on the specialist menu and choose the last course, which is Applied Statistics, that should again take you into the course. And this is where the course dashboard is as far as your studying and teaching and learning material is concerned. Now you see this in a table of contents format, but that does not mean there is no data inside it. Some part of it is going to be populated by the system administrator. So you might see just one or two files, but at some stage, once after the induction is over, you should be able to then go in and start looking at the first unit, and that should allow you to easily get into and start reading into some of the contents of the unit which are uploaded. Now, just to very briefly mention and show this, show one other thing to you. In terms of documents, sometimes when you look at, you would probably have a couple of different types of documents, on the system. So they might be a combination of PDF documents. There could be a combination of, what are called, Word documents. There'll be some books, which will be a part and parcel of your curriculum that would be provided by us. And in some cases, you will have handouts and, let's say, summarized documents that we provide, and they would be useful for you to go through the course content. Now, today, in terms of the induction, what I would be focusing on primarily would be looking at a couple of things in the pre-enrollment section of the program, which is going through some of the documents here, and obviously signposting and drawing your attention towards some of the documents that you could go through. But very briefly, in terms of other things that I want to look at in the system, what you're going to be seeing is a certain type of layout that is going to be common across all the units. So when you're in the course and you want to go back to the back page or the front, the cover page of the course, you have an option to click the logo, which will take you to the home page. And the other is if you want to go one page back, you click on the breadcrumbs on the top here, and that will take you back to the table of contents format in terms of the whole course being visible. Now, in terms of any unit that you look at, for example, you're going to be starting off with the first unit. This unit is going to have a yellow colored outline around the box, which will say, this is the unit currently being delivered by the lecturer. This is the unit for which you'll get invites for the sessions. And we'll discuss that in terms of a study plan a bit later. But that would give you an idea that this unit is currently being discussed or is being currently delivered. Now, how the contents are arranged on the unit, you normally have the first document as always what is called unit specification. Now, this is a document that we extract from the course handbook and is a document which is useful for lecturers. And I and some of my colleagues will use this to go through some of the learning outcomes and assessment criteria while we are teaching and delivering this particular unit to you. And when we do lectures basis, learning outcomes. So we'll cover all the contents of learning outcome 1, that will be one lecture, then will be learning outcome 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. If there are 6 learning outcomes, there'll be 7 lectures for this unit, because the 7th lecture is going to be the lecture in which we discuss the assignment brief in detail. That means we're going to go through the assignment brief given by the awarding body, in this case ATHE, and discuss how you would go about compiling the evidence. Now, in each of the learning outcome, what do we teach and cover? We will cover, if I scroll down on this document, we'll cover the indicative content, which is given by the awarding body as a source to say, okay, you just can't teach anything. What you have to teach and deliver in the learning outcome 1 is cover this content, and that would put the learner in confidence that I have understood what is data, what is statistics, and how does it help in decision making or reaching conclusions. So we'll cover all this in the presentation, which are then obviously going to be taught and delivered with lectures. Now, if I look at, say, for example, just a sample one presentation. This is the first presentation, for learning outcome 1. And this is what is going to be used along with some videos and maybe some handouts when the teacher or the lecturer is actually delivering this unit. As you can see, all the learning content is used to create the presentation. And these presentations are quite worded, because when we do our teaching and learning, we're not reading from the slides, but we're going to be discussing the concepts, the key frameworks, the key formulas, or, in this case, methodologies which are required to be able to understand and then grasp the contents of the learning outcome. Now, they will normally start off with an overview of the learning outcome. They will have some key terminology, some basics or principles, or if there are, for example, frameworks that we need to know as theoretical outputs, and then we'll get into maybe watch a video if it's available, summarizing that content, and then we get into individual assessment criteria discussion. That will allow you to also understand what all is to be covered and how it is to be covered as far as the unit is concerned. This layout and this particular format follows through on all the presentations that we do and all the discussions that we do for all the units, including say, for example, videos, some handouts, and also activities that we will give you from time to time. Sometimes you would see that once the lectures have been done, each of these lectures get appended underneath, and you have a link to that lecture, so which you click on, and that lecture is an audio-visual lecture, like I'm doing one today, and that should now be available after it is completed, so that if you want to review it, everything is in one location, and that should allow you to access the course, the material, the lectures, the discussion with the teachers, all in one location, which is on the Moodle platform. And this layout will follow through across all the units. And that is what the system, systems side of things is. When we talk about, things like how to get in touch using the website, WhatsApp, looking at Zoom, which will be used for teaching and learning in terms of, videos for tutorials. We'll also be looking at Moodle, from which you'll get all the learning content. And then sometimes you'll be looking at also going to the YouTube channel, which will allow, you to look at videos or look at relevant videos which are related to the topic as an add-on, and they would be available, because we have uploaded them in the open domain, and that is something that you can access from our YouTube channel. You'll be able to reach us through WhatsApp, phone, and email. And obviously the phone number, the college switchboard is what I would ask you to kind of bookmark at your end, and that should allow you to reach us at any given point in time, Monday to Sunday, normally during Monday to Friday between 9:30 to 5:30. But if it is urgent, then obviously on the mobile through the WhatsApp. And that helps us cover the bit which is on systems, just very briefly, an overview of how you would get the course content and how would you get access to the course for your studies. Is that okay? Any questions so far, or any queries on this so far?
No, all very clear so far. Thank you.
Okay, good stuff. Now,
So good, thank you.
Thanks. And what we'll do now is basically go into a bit of a course overview. And that course overview will basically show you some of the bits that you're going to be looking at covering in the course content itself. And let me shift you back to Moodle. So everything that I'm going to pull out as documents or pull out, essentially for the purposes of showing to you, discussing with you, is all going to come from the system. One last thing which I want to basically check, and I'm just going to quickly look in here. So both of you probably have not been enrolled by the IT administrator so far, Andy. Let me see if he has created logins for you. So Jack definitely is in, and Johny. Okay, let me just quickly add Johny as well, so that you're able to get access to the system as we go along. Just give me 1 second. So Johny, for you, I will be adding your personal email so that you have access to it with your Hotmail.
That's fine. It might be that I'm already on there, but I might have full named myself. So I might have put myself down as Jonathan, just to make sure I got the right name on the certificate at the end.
Right. So do you want me to create a login for you with your full name as Jonathan?
Well, yeah, try searching it because it might come up.
All right.
It might already be on there.
Give me 1 second. Yeah, you are definitely there. So let me just add you to the course. There you go. And what I'll do is I'll drop you a quick email now, parallelly, so that you have the username and the temporary password. And then you can obviously go ahead and change that. So that is just about done. So the temporary password that I've kept for you is case sensitive, and I'll mention that in brackets so that when you try and log in, you should be able to do so. Your usernames are always in small or lowercase, and that's also been emailed to you along with how you would essentially look at resetting your password. So there's an email which I've sent you on that as well. So that's all done. And what I will do is switch you back. So both of you are on the system, and I'm just going to add the 2 tutors. Okay. That's great. So let's get on with now, essentially looking at the course overview. And that would be by just okay, so that's all done. I'm going to, for the course overview, I'm going to pull out the course handbook from here, and that is this document, which is the first document on the top. So if I click on this, that opens the course handbook from ATHE. That's the off-call qualification code. Should you wish to verify the qualification, that is the code that you need to go and put on the off-call register, and that would help you quickly, obviously find out whether it's a regulated qualification or not. So this is obviously a regulated qualification, and as you can see, it's approved under the off-call. It's a graded qualification, which is that means you can achieve a pass, merit, or distinction. If you achieve a higher grade on the UCAS tariff, should you wish to obviously then study further with the university, that should give you more UCAS points as far as the qualification is concerned. Now, this course handbook is a brief document of 28 pages. But I think in terms of drawing some attention towards what I want you to go through or maybe read would be bits and pieces in terms of, what is the qualification all about. As I mentioned to you, it is graded. But when we look at the brief, of the qualification in terms of, what the qualification is intended at, in particular, this qualification typically, would help you build skills primarily on the statistics side. And when I talk about statistics, and obviously when we look at doing market research in particular, there are units in the qualification which are covered, which primarily would give you knowledge and skills about how to apply sampling, how to look at hypothesis development, how to look at collating data, and obviously using a lot of data in organizations when it is collected to repurpose, analyze data into information, and from information, trying to decipher knowledge, and the knowledge is then used by managers or your colleagues in the organization to essentially make or take decisions. So the qualification primarily looks at underpinning, and helping you build knowledge on how to apply mathematical related skills, which is predominantly in the domain of statistics, to help in business decision making, or essentially using crunching data into information into knowledge. Now, this is one A-level equivalent qualification, carries 60 credits, and there are, obviously 4 units that you're going to study in this qualification, and they would be based on certain areas, related to the course. Now, these 4 units essentially would be introduction to statistics, helping you build a bit of foundation in terms of what is statistics, and why is this a science in itself. We'll be looking at hypothesis testing. We'll be also looking at what is the importance of statistics in the industry and in terms in general in the commerce side, and then how do we use IT tools, things like SPSS, there are Qualmetrics, there are lots of different softwares that we are able to use to be able to crunch data, and data that is meaningful data into information, and that will be the use of statistics using, or basically crunching data in statistics using ICT, and that's the 4th unit. The 2 units, which is hypothesis testing and statistics in industry and commerce, are 20 credit each, and the introduction to statistics and the ICT in statistics is 10 credits. So the total qualification is 60 credits, and we're looking at about 360 guided learning hours, of which about 60, anywhere between 40 to 60 hours is going to be lecturing. I would suggest 2 to 3 hours as self-study every week in terms of articles that we will provide, case studies that we will provide. There'll be books that are also integrated into the course, and they would allow you to essentially study some part of the information, or glean some part of the information from the books. Obviously, these will be standard academic books that are normally available and recommended by ATHE for the study of this particular qualification. And these books, we will provide them unit-wise, and they will be integrated into the unit. So you'll have things like statistics, which is an introduction to statistics. You'll have statistics for dummies. There is a book on Edexcel International, which is primarily using spreadsheets as a software for data crunching and data calculations. And there will be a couple of websites that will provide links to, which provide useful handouts, like the BBC Bite-Size website, Maths is Fun, and Office of National Statistics, from which we'll be able to glean some of the information related to the units and the content that we're going to be studying. As I mentioned, there is no exam in this. It is all going to be on the basis of assessment. You'll be required to submit an assignment. That assignment will not have a fail. You'll have a pass, merit, or distinction, simply because when you submit the work into us, we are able to give you feedback to say this bit is meeting the criteria or not meeting the criteria, and that should then allow you to improve work and resubmit it to us for the purposes of final grading. Now, there is a grading system in the qualification, and it's not down to the assessors or the tutors to grade. The grading system works very clinically in the sense that if you achieve 3 units with distinction and 1 with pass, your overall grade in the qualification will tip over to distinction. Similarly, if you have 3 units with merit and 1 with pass, it should tip your overall grade in the qualification to merit. But if you have all units pass, or if you have 2 units pass and 2 units distinction, your grade would become merit. And if you have 2 units merit and 2 units pass, your overall grade will still remain a pass. So the grading system is explained here. And obviously, when you do submit assignments to us, what we also expect you to do when you do submit the assignment, in the email of the assignment, when you're emailing it to us as a Word attachment or a PowerPoint presentation, you're going to be clearly mentioning what grade you're trying to achieve, so that the feedback then can be commensurate to allowing you to achieve that particular grade. Now, all work is obviously subject to scanning through a plagiarism software to detect any malpractice or similarity. That limit is 20%, just like universities. Anything over 20% obviously would be flagged up. You'll get a copy of that report to see that what data you or what parts of the assignment you need to paraphrase or reference in order to bring that similarity down. Now, apart from this, if you are new to ATHE as an organization or haven't heard about it, Awards for Training in Higher Education was set up in 2009. So there is a little bit of a background which will be available at the start of the course handbook. And they are a breakaway from the NCFE, which is the oldest awarding body in the UK, 175 years old. So NCFE decided to stay in further education. So they have most of the programs which are level 1 to 3. But ATHE, when it was formed, they decided to go into higher education. So most of their programs are from level 3 to 7. And they obviously offer qualifications in accounting, business, management, healthcare, law. There are specialisms like Jewish studies and some of the other religious-based studies as well. But some of the flagship programs that they offer are predominantly in business and healthcare and law and accounting. And all their qualifications are accepted by universities. They are on the UCAS points, and you should be confident that you're studying a qualification from a body which is very well recognized. They are one of the 3 or 4 higher education bodies which are quite well respected, and the qualification itself that you get at the end of the course would be globally valid. Should you wish to, obviously, sometimes if you look for jobs or careers outside the UK, then this qualification would carry its credence in terms of being recognized globally. I don't have an exact certificate at this stage, but if I briefly show how the diploma certificate would be awarded at some stage when you do, complete your course, I will show you an equivalent example, and that would be just showing you one such particular, qualification from ATHE, specifically at level 3. So if you see this particular, qualification, this is awarded as a 2-page transcript. So the first page tends to be the name of the qualification, and it would mention the grade at which you have achieved it. In this case, the learner has achieved merit. It'll have, details of the qualification. And then the second page is going to be a transcript, which mentions and provides the individual grades that you achieve in the unit. Now, with keeping in line with the government requirements of the Higher Education Digital Database, all qualifications, at ATHE are digitally verifiable. Should you wish to do so, or your employer should wish to do so, they would need to put in the certificate number, the name of the learner, the qualification code, and that would allow the qualification to be verified, the certificate to be verified, and that should happen, all that could happen electronically on the ATHE website. So if this is the awarding body website, if you do wish to, obviously look at, say, for example, confirm the center, or for example, verify a certificate, you click on this link, it'll ask you to, key in some details, and that when you have done, it'll send an automatic confirmation with a verification of the certificate to the employer or to the concerned party. So all qualifications on that side are easily verifiable, from the awarding body website. Now, any questions on this bit of the course overview so far?
I've got one. Is there any documentation or anything? So obviously we can, when we submit stuff, we can say oh, I'm aiming for a pass or a merit distinction. Is there any document or anything that gives a breakdown of what the difference of a quality of an answer would be to sort of get either of those sort of grades? So for a pass, you need to do this, but for a merit, you need to do this plus this, and distinction is this plus this plus this plus this.
Absolutely, yes. So it's a good question that you've asked. What you are going to see at some stage on the Moodle, I'm just scrolling down to one unit specification, just to bring that to your notice. So these, from page 16 onwards, this is the unit specification that we have extracted from the handbook, and they are available in individual units. Now, how would you go about finding out? I'll break that question that you asked to me in 2 parts. first part is how do I know, how do I go about achieving a pass or a merit or a distinction? So the first part of that is to look at, if I do, say, for example, if I'm reading this unit and I'm submitting my assignment, if I only do the past tasks across all the learning outcomes, all these past tasks, then I'm only setting myself to achieve the pass grade, right? If I do only the past tasks. But if I'm looking at achieving merit, then what I also need to do at some stage would be to do pass plus also do all the merit tasks. That means wherever they are given as merit tasks, they would also need to be, they would also need to be addressed, and that would allow me to achieve merit. And if I'm looking at achieving a distinction, then I have to pretty much do everything in terms of tasks which are given on the assignment brief, which I will show you in a second, and they would essentially be, required to be attempted in order to get and achieve that highest grade. Now, the second part of your question, which I've understood, is how do I see a sampler to understand that this is what is required, to be able to achieve pass? How much do I need to write? Obviously, is there a word limit? And in some cases, how do I differentiate that, okay, this is what I need to do, or this is how much I need to write to be able to essentially achieve the higher grade or the merit grade. Now, what we are also going to do in Moodle is going to be providing you what is called a sampler assignment to look at. And that sampler assignment would be an assignment which has been submitted by one of the learners. And that assignment was essentially allow you to see visually what is required to be submitted to be able to achieve the highest grade. And if I, mention it this way, just to show, say, for example, I'm just going to randomly show one to you. How will that be visible? And it will be clearly laid out as what is called a sample assignment when it comes up on all of your 4 units. And when I click on that, it will show you an exact assignment. It'll be a random one, which will be anonymized, but it'll be a good version of the assignment to show you how the assignment needs to be attempted to be able to achieve a higher grade. Now, we won't be able to provide you a sample to say this is a pass, this is a merit, or this is a distinction, but a sampler for you to look at in terms of how the output needs to be submitted or generated would be available on the login and under each unit, and they are neatly labeled as what are called sample assignments. Is that okay? Does it answer your question?
Yeah, that does. Thank you.
Okay. Now, one other bit I would add to what I've explained is that there are a few emails that we are going to send. I'm not going to probably say that I will send you now, but there is an email that we have which basically would give you some guidance in terms of how much is too much to write or how much is too less to write when you're trying to achieve a higher grade. And that is going to be referenced with a particular, let's say, document. And I'm going to take you through that in a second. And that would be essentially called the command verbs. Now, the reason this document is important is because when you try and do your assignments, although this is a practical qualification, most of your written work is going to be in the form of examples, mathematical formulas, and some calculations. But there are going to be 2 units in particular, like the Introduction to Statistics and the ICT in Statistics, which will essentially require you to underpin theory or use theoretical frameworks to quote in the assignment when you submit. Now, in such places, the command verbs become quite important. And the reason I say why they become important is because when you do go in and start attempting the assignments are going to be in the form of what is called a task and a question. And I want to show you that because that would essentially relate to what I am actually wanting to, mention. Let me just quickly line the 3 documents up because I need to show them to you side by side. So let's go into the unit specification of one of them. And let me share my screen. This is going to be slightly big, but I'm going to try and go down 2 windows. So what you see on your side is 3 documents. The first document that you see on your side is basically called the US or unit specification, as I explained. This is what is a command verb document, CV, and this document is AB or assignment brief. Now, what I want to point out in between these three documents and why they're important is that when you look at the assignment brief and you look at the unit specification here, these two side by side, what you're going to essentially see is that they are not very different. The only difference is that in the assignment, the awarding body is going to give you a scenario or a background to assume. Before we ask you to do a task, or before I ask you to say, can you do this? What I want to do is give you a context or a background to say, this is what it is to be, this is what it is. You need to look at this as a background and then do these tasks. So there is a bit of scenario which they give, and each of the learning outcome then gets converted into what is called a task. And these tasks will exactly be the same words as what are given in the unit specification. There may not be very many difference in between the two. Now, when you look at these tasks and when you look at the command verb or the word, which now what I want to do is just show you one screen so it's easier and much more clearer. Just the assignment brief, which I want to show you, the Word document. Now, when you see this particular document, there are some words in the tasks which are given, which will tell you what is required to be done. So if I delete this word explain for a minute across the board, and then I read the task that I need to do. So it says how data and statistics are used to support conclusions, decision-making, and how they may be misused to influence decision. Although when you read this, because the how is there, it still tells you how, but doesn't tell you what is required to be done. Do I need to explain this, describe it, analyze it, evaluate it? Do I need to give an example? Do I need to discuss advantages, disadvantages? That bit of what is required to be done to complete this task is actually defined in the command verb. Now, if I read the second one, it says the importance of validating sources of data and statistics. Now, what does that mean? What do I need to do with this? This is like a statement. I don't know what is required to be done. So that is where, if I undo now, the command verbs essentially become important. Now, when I look at these command verbs, these are important because we know exactly what is the definition of the command verb and how much is too much to write or how much is too less to write, or what is exactly required to be done in terms of creating the evidence or providing the evidence to achieve this particular task. And that is what will actually define the word limit in some cases of your assignment. So how much you need to write. You don't need to write 10,000 words assignment or 5,000 word assignment. We'll give you some indicative guidance, which will essentially say that this is what you would need to do to be able to achieve, this particular grade. And if I then just very briefly show you one email, which I would essentially send, but not now. And that email, if you look at this for now, what you're going to see is it talks about giving you some idea in terms of, what is the word limit that you can use to answer some of these tasks. So when we have command verbs like explain, define, describe, you're pretty much writing about 70 to 100 words. If you have assess, examine, clarify, or analyze, you're writing a bit more, because here you might need to talk about, the constituents of what is being discussed, give some advantages, build some supporting arguments, or give an example, and that would help you assess or clarify or analyze that particular task. But when we talk about compare, contrast, critically evaluate or evaluate, you're going to be writing a bit more, because here you're going to be using theory to underpin, or maybe use an example to underpin the theory. And that is where your write-up which start to go up. Now, if I follow this through in all the assignment, what document that we provided to you on the Moodle, I'll just switch you over in a second. There are 28 command verbs that you can come across in your assignments of across the 4 units. Now, if you know the definition of these words and you have this email from us to give you a bit of a background to say, this is what you need to do, or this is how much you need to write, then we can come to a suggested or a recommended word limit. For pass, normally we see 4,000 to 4,500 words being sufficient, more than sufficient. But if you're trying to reach merit or distinction, then in those cases, sometimes because you're doing the additional tasks, You're doing 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, but 1M1 in some cases, in some LOs, there is 2M1, 2M2. Because of the addition of those tasks, your word limit might need to go slightly higher because you're doing higher order command verb tasks. And there the word limit on the assignments can stretch to 5.5 to 6,000 words maximum. Now, if you're going above that limit, there are two things which could be a negative. One, you're going to copy and paste a lot of stuff, which will push your similarity of the assignment. And the second is when we do scanning, obviously, and sometimes we do feel that there is a lot of information which has been provided, which should not have been used or provided. And in those cases, what we recommend is use plenty of diagrams, pictures, and tables to convey the same meaning that you've written, because a picture is worth 1,000 words, then actually writing them down in words. Is that okay? Is that understood?
Yep, that looks great. Thank you.
Good stuff. So taking you back to the Moodle and essentially going through, so these are command verbs essentially that we have created a list of. And if you know the definition of these words, it helps you to adjust and write accordingly. And these are the only command verbs that will come across all the assignments or the units that you're going to actually study in this course. Now, along with this, what I also want to do is briefly show you that because your work can be actually presented in two ways. One, you read a lot of stuff and you write it in your own words. And the other is sometimes you have to pick the word as or word or paragraph or sentences as it is, because it's been published, created by an author, and you're not one, you cannot alter the meaning of that framework or the definition. And that is where you have to use direct quotes. So in most qualifications in the UK, we use Harvard referencing system. And this is a summary presentation to help you go through and understand why do you need to reference your work. Simple reason, you need to give credit to authors, publishers, or people who have written, created, or invented that work. And that allows it to be factual and accurate as well. So in this context, you would need to reference the work. Referencing can happen from books, articles, journals, and electronic sources like websites, forums, and even when research papers are published or case studies. And that is where you would need to reference and obviously, quote the authors which have, essentially written or created that material. Now, when we do that, there are only two ways of doing it: direct quotations, which is always put in inverted commas, and paraphrasing. That means I read something, but I write it in my own words. And this system is also called the author date cite system, because you mention the name of the author, and then in subsequent brackets include what is called the year in which it was published or created. And if you have more than one author, and sometimes when we are using direct quotes with definitions or exact meanings have to be quoted, then you also do what is called in-text referencing, which is followed by a hyphen, by a colon, and then you put the page number from which it has been taken, and that will be in-text referencing, being very specific. If you have two authors, two names, and if you have three authors, last names, and if you have more than three, then it's a team, and we use the term et al. Now, every assignment would need to have at least 6 references, and these references are a must, simply because that show the data that you have provided in your document as evidence is essentially factual and accurate, and that would be a mandatory criteria. So this presentation is something that you should go through and understand and develop. If you have not used Harvard referencing before, then obviously this will be a good starting point to go through this presentation, and also watch this particular video, which is for Harvard referencing. This is on our YouTube channel as well, and you can watch this video, which tells you and teaches you how to reference, why referencing is important, and why is it that this needs to be done when you're writing your assignments. So that bit with the command verbs, I would suggest is a bit of a bedside study that you need to do if you haven't used referencing in the past. And the idea would be to try and develop this. There are lots of different sites that you can use as size generators, which will allow you to reference. And in Microsoft Word, when you do your assignments, you would also be able to use referencing because it is integrated into the Microsoft documents. So if I show you very briefly here of how referencing would need to be done, assuming if this is the assignment that I was actually doing, and if I create some space here, And the question was, what is statistics? If I just put this as a brief question, and what I would then need to do is obviously do my research, find out from where, and what definitions I would need to take. So if I then in this case go in and click on the references tab, drop down, there are lots of different referencing system in the world, choose Harvard Anglia, and then what I need to write at some stages, what is statistics? That's the task, say 1.1. Then what I would do is, if I do a quick search on Google and I read something and it says it's a scientific discipline which deals with the collection, organization, analysis, and presentation of data. Now, that is what the site is saying, but if I write it in my own words, and what I would do is essentially, at some stage write it, but what I would need to do is basically give credit to where I've taken this information from. So what I would do then in that case is I need to put referencing. So the way I would do it is go into insert citation. Now, depending on which place I've taken it from, so I've taken it from a website, so I choose website, and what I then do is basically go into the website and get some details that I need to publish here, which will essentially help me, put a reference. So the author in this case that I've taken the definition from is Donald Brent, L.D. Brent. And what is the URL of the website? I would need to publish that here, in which year it was mentioned, 2019, in the year in which I'm accessing 2023, month 09 September, and today's date, which is 14th of September. Now, what is the page name of the URL of the page? What I would do is put this here, what is statistics, click OK, and you would see it will bring a reference here. Now, this is something wherein I've paraphrased, I've read the page, and from that I've extracted what I need to write, and I've written it in my own words, and that is what is paraphrasing. But if I was choosing the same information from a book, or say from a website, or from an article, then in that case, I would start as per one of the renowned statisticians. Sorry. So if I put this on, and then I look at the definition, of statistics, which is coming in, say from a known statistician, which is somebody who's established in the field. And then what I would do is basically read the definition, but I'm going to quote him in my own words. And that would be, say, for example, if I take as per one of the renowned statisticians, John Carl Frederick, and his last name is Goss. And what I'm going to do is define how he defined statistics as, and he defined this as, just copying and pasting from there. What I would need to do is say comma, and defined it as, comma, put inverted quotes, put the definition in, close the definition. And what I would need to do is now go in and insert a citation. So here I'm taking it from a book. And then what I know is the name of the author. So what I will do is I'll put the name of the author here. What is the title of his book that he published? The title of the book that he published was Statistics. So just making it up right now, just to show you an example, Statistics, Behavioral Science. The city in which it was published was Berlin, published in 1855. Year in which, the year in which it was published was this. It was the second edition. So I don't need to write second. And the publisher was a German publisher. I'll just mention the name here. And I click OK. As you can see, it brings that particular thing here. Now, this is referencing. So when you reference this, although I will format it once I finish my document and obviously present it, I'm going to format it. And then towards the end, if I go down to the last page, wherein I need to write now and include all the references or the work that I've cited in my assignment, what I will do is basically choose the work cited, and it'll bring it in a chronological order and show all the details from where I've taken the work, how I've compiled my assignment, and that is what would be Harvard referencing. Is that okay? Any questions on this?
No, that's great. Thank you.
Good stuff. Now, last but not the least, just very briefly, very briefly, showing you a couple of things, which is just to draw your attention towards, how the assessment and feedback process essentially works. So when you submit assignment, so if I just take you back here now to the bit that we want to look at discussing. Close all that. So now just visually showing some of the things. So when you come in at some stage, maybe 3, 4, 5 weeks down the line, when you are ready to essentially submit the first assignment, what will happen is submission of assignment is done on email, and email is learnerwork@ukversity.co.uk. So there are two things happen. One, you get an acknowledgement receipt that your work has been received, and the second is it gets forwarded to the lecturer or the tutor actually who's going to be marking the assignment and giving you the feedback. Now, once that happens, there are 2, 3 things that will follow. So when you do submit the assignment, in, say, for example, 2 to 3 working days, you would generally get a response back from the tutor, who is going to then provide you some sort of a summary or a feedback, and that would be to say, okay, your assignment has been received. This is what your assignment, is and looks like, and this is what the commenting that we have done, on the assignment. And I will very briefly show it to you how it looks like, because this is something that you're going to then keep for your records and reference going further, so that wherever, whenever you look at obviously referring to your work, or, when we put this forward for the purposes of certification, what will essentially happen is this is something which is going to be, provided to the awarding body as well. So I'm just going to randomly show you 1 or 2 things, just very briefly, so that you're able to see what and how you would receive some of this bit back, once it is actually submitted. So let me just line up these documents to visually just show you, and it'll give you a bit of a sense and an idea in terms of how you're going to be looking at submitting your work. So I'm going to share my full screen again, because there's no way I can show you all the documents in one screen. So if I move my screen now, when you do submit your work, so this is your work. Say, for example, you've submitted this work, and what we've done is, when this work has been submitted, at some stage, what we've gone ahead and done is basically marked your work. This is the work. Now, this work has also been scanned through a plagiarism software, which is Turnitin. And in this case, what we do is, we do see that there are bits and pieces which are coming up, which are basically headings. So in this case, these are headings, as you can see, and that is what is subtracted. Although the overall score for the plagiarism scan is showing 28%, but when we look at references, wherever the work has been referenced, we do see that the work is still under 20%, and it is absolutely acceptable. Now, if for some reason we do feel that the work is blatantly copied and pasted, you'll probably get this report, and it's a traffic light system. So wherever it is showing red, those are the places you would need to paraphrase or reference work and then send it back. Now, the assignment, when it is marked, we put some comments on the right-hand side. And this commenting or review is done to essentially give you a sense and idea that you're achieving your tasks, the evidence submitted is fine, and it is meeting the criteria. And then this is something that you'll be only able to see when you open it on a PC, laptop, Mac, or a fuller screen device, not on the phone and not on the tablet, because the review section is hidden on some of these devices. And this would be to help you also understand that if there are areas wherein it is not achieved or it is weak, then it will allow you to, change your work, make changes to the work as we have suggested with the comments, and then you resend this same document back to the lecturer on learner work for further grading or further assessment. And this document will go back and forth until you're happy with the grade that you're achieving, and we do see that the work is meeting the awarding body criteria. Now, once that happens, you get a summative feedback document as a summary to say why you have got this grade, why this unit has been passed, and what grade has been finally awarded. This is then also verified by the internal verifier, the quality manager, Phil, and he would accord or agree with the grade which has been provided. So in this case, as you would see, first the work was submitted by the learner. It was in the form of a presentation and a Word document. And then Word document was scanned through the plagiarism software. We did annotations in terms of review. We did find the work to be meeting the criteria, but only met the pass criteria. That is why the learner got the pass grade. We had obviously advised, do you want to look at a higher grade or attend some of the extension activities? Not done. And then obviously the learner is happy with the pass grade, and what we've done is verified the work and then provided these 3 documents back to you as a learner, so that you have it for your record. This is the first one, which is summative feedback. This is the annotated document back, a black scan report, which is for similarity. In some assignments, you'll have a presentation, so you'll get the presentation back as well. And then a presentation that you've done or provided to us will also be assessed, and there will be some commenting which will be done. And that commenting is also done. And then you get an observation record of that for your proof and reference. And this process is the process of assessment and feedback. So when you submit work to learner work, you're going to get some feedback on the assignment. If it meets the criteria, doesn't meet the criteria, you'll get that feedback back, you'll rework on it, you'll send it back again. Once it is all okay and you're happy with the grade, we are happy with the evidence, what will happen is these documents will follow through back on your email to have as evidence and for safekeeping to say that you've achieved the unit, and then you move on to the next one. Is that okay? Any questions on this?
Oh, sorry, Jack.
Sorry, any questions?
Oh, no, good, thank you.
All right, okay, that's great. So basically that tends to be the feedback and the assessment process. This will obviously happen 3-4 times or 4 times minimum, because there are 4 units. And sometimes if we do feel that we are sending some feedback, but you're not able to follow, then in those cases, this kind of a Zoom session would also be done to help you get through it and help you understand what is required to be done, rather than back and forth on the email, just like universities. So we would rather pick up the phone and speak to you and say, okay, we have a quick Zoom discussion to show or discuss where you're going wrong or what needs to be changed, and that would be done so that we are able to get to the unit and obviously the closure part of it. Is that okay?
Yeah,
now,
brilliant.
Last but not the least,
Yes.
very briefly, looking at a couple of things in terms of key people in the team. So key people in the team essentially would be course coordinators who would be basically keeping a close tab on you to see how you're progressing and how is the qualification going along, and do you need any live sessions, tutorials, things like that. Now, one of my colleagues called Jill, she basically looks after course coordination, and what she would do is normally when the sessions are scheduled, she would send across the schedule to you, and it will come through in an email. That email schedule will essentially be having Zoom meeting codes, the name of the tutor, the assignment brief which is being discussed, and at some stage that should give you the whole schedule for the unit for the next 4 to 6 weeks. Is that okay? And in terms of the schedule, if I just very briefly show you one just as an example, that would essentially be an email like this. So you'll probably have, who's doing the session, how many sessions are there for that unit, and each of the Zoom meeting codes for that week, so that you're able to click on the link and obviously join the session. There are 2-3 other colleagues of mine who are also going to be in the particular loop, and they would essentially be, one of my colleagues who's an administrator, and his name is Aman. So he would be essentially, in touch with you on email or phone, again, tracking your progress and seeing how you're getting along in the course. Should you need any resources, should you need anything in terms of a recording that you've missed a session, then he's the person who would be essentially, providing details on that. So session scheduling is done, and then providing Zoom codes and tutorials with the tutors is with Jill. Aman will be looking after recordings, any, let's say resource, or say, for example, any help and support which is needed primarily, for the purposes of, sorting out any queries. He's the one who's going to add you on the WhatsApp group, and then obviously will be in touch from time to time. Now, in terms of the tutors, there are 2 or 3 tutors on the course. There is one of the tutors is Sanjay Sinha.
Can I just stop you for 1 second?
Yeah, go on.
I need to move from where I am to another location, so I'm going to stream the rest of this on my phone through YouTube. Thank you for today. It's been really, really helpful. If I have any questions at the end, I'll email them to you if that's all right. But I need to move through locations, but I'll be watching on my phone.
That's absolutely fine, Johnny. We are only a couple of minutes away, but that's absolutely okay. I'll catch up with you separately as well.
Thank you.
Thanks. In terms of tutors, I've got Sanjay Sinha. He's a senior consultant with Ernst & Young, and he is involved in market intelligence, BI, and obviously market research. So he's one of the tutors on this course. And I've got one of my colleagues, Temi Tope. He's a MSc in mathematics and physics from University of Salford, and he teaches maths at GCSE and both at A levels with us. And he would be probably looking at teaching some course content within this particular course. Now, if you need to ever write to anybody at UK Versity, in terms of any queries that you normally have, which are related to the coursework, or for example, if you have queries related to unit or maybe tasks or assignments, then in most cases, these queries should be addressed to learnerwork at UK Versity. Reason, this is a shared mailbox and it is accessible by any tutor. So tutors essentially on this course should be able to respond to you within 2 hours maximum when an email is sent, and that should allow you to move on or move ahead with the study of your course. If you need to wish to write to anybody separately, it is always the first name at UK Versity of the person followed by ukversity.co.uk, and you should be able to write to that. So if you need to write to me, it's Raman. If you need to write to, say, for example, Jill, it'll be Jill. If you need to write to Amandeep, it'll be Amandeep. If you need to write to, say, for example, Sanjay, it'll be Sanjay at UK Versity. And one of the other tutors which I forgot is Anjum. And Anjum is Anjum at UK Versity. So it's quite simple. It's easy enough to remember, and you should be able to write to that particular person by addressing them by their first name, followed by the footer, which is ukversity.co.uk. So these are the key people in the team that you'll probably be liaising with and speaking to from time to time. And hopefully that should allow you to study the course with us comprehensively as you start your studies. Now, one last thing which I want to check, and in terms of putting together a bit of a study plan, what I want to do is ask you what days and times are generally favorable for you to be able to do some live sessions with us. So, Jack, it's only you on the session. I'll have to ask Johnny separately because I think I've exceeded the time in terms of what was initially planned. But could you just give me some idea in terms of what are the days on which you'll be ideally able to attend and join some of the live sessions? Should we schedule them?
Personally, for me, Sunday from about 1 o'clock onwards, if that's okay. They're my days I'm always going to be free.
That's fine, 1 p.m. And timing wise, I know after 1 p.m. as you're saying.
Yeah, any time after that.
That's fine. I think Sunday will suit us perfect. Keeping in mind, sometimes our calendars are quite busy, so Sunday 1 p.m. should be perfect. And what we are going to do is, obviously, I'm just going to go back to, Johny as well, and Jonathan as well, I mean, and then check with him in terms of if he's okay with Sunday 1 p.m. What we'll primarily look at doing is on Sundays, we do these sessions normally at 10 or 2 p.m. So it'll be 2 p.m. on Sunday, one of the sessions. And what we'll do is drop a schedule for the first unit, and we'll get that across to you by tomorrow, so that you're able to start with us, in terms of teaching and learning from Sunday.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Good stuff. Any other questions? So I think we've covered pretty much everything that we wanted to look at in terms of, the session today. And I hope you feel confident in terms of, having gone through some of the bits with regards to the session. And it gives you the background and knowledge in terms of how you're going to be looking at studying the course with us. But in terms of the system, although the access I've provided, I think Andy would have done it once all the material would have been up. But I will ask him to rush it through so that by close of play tomorrow, books, handouts, presentations, articles, journals, and presentations should be all updated, and you should have access to the units, fully, the course material fully.
Okay, thank you.
Good stuff. So that is all from me in terms of this particular session. I'm going to send you a copy of this recording in any case for you to revisit or have it. This will also be reflected on the login, after this is being made available. So if I just briefly go back into Moodle again, generally what tends to happen is on your course, you'd be able to see the recording when you go in. I'm going to try and show this, on one of the courses. So it'll come up like a box like this, which will basically be the copy of the recording of the video induction. And then a link of this also would be dropped into, the WhatsApp group, just in case for you to have it handy.
Okay, thank you.
Good stuff. So I'll hopefully be catching up with you in the subsequent days and weeks. Till then, enjoy the rest of your evening, and thank you so much for joining this session. I look forward to obviously you completing and obviously achieving the course with us.
Thank you very much.
Take care, Jack. Thanks, and bye.